Welcome back to the Next Best Bet. It's a big episode heading into the weekend with the U.S. Open, NBA playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs, and MLB as always this summer. This is episode 148 of the Next Best Bet. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy as always. Before we get into this episode's picks, though, got to look at last episode, and it was not a strong episode for me. Some tough breaks, Brett. I did get one win of my 5 picks. The Golden Knights did cover their puck line of -1.5. However, the over 5.5 did not hit. You warned me about the goalie play, and you know what? Fleury stood up. He only allowed 1 to get past him. Carey Price allowed 4 to get past him, though. Still hit that under, so I was screwed there. And then the Cubs against the Mets just did not work out for me, but also those lines jumped a lot from the night before when we were talking about it, where it was +140, to the morning of that game, it was down near +105.
Oh wow, that's big line movement, Higgins. So, I mean, you beat the book, you just didn't win the game. That's tough, but great job beating the book. If you do that more times than not, you're gonna be a winner, Higgins. So, just keep pounding that hammer. It'll work out. It'll flip. And yeah, I was okay. I lost my big underdog play with the Canadians, but I only put half a unit on it, Higgins, so it wasn't a huge play for me. It was just my biggest risk of the night. But I came home in the Levy lock, and that's what we try and do here is win our strongest feeling bets, and we did that.
Yes, you're doing a better job on that than I am on the year. A 4.5 game lead is what you hold over me. You are 24-19. I'm 19, 23-1 with my pick of the pods. Not seeming like locks. Yours are. Mine aren't. Let's get into the beginner's boulevard, though, Brett, and we're going to talk about betting without. Now, this is a term meaning that the betting market just doesn't have a favorite, right?
Yeah, so it's typically what it does, Higgins, is in a big golf tournament, really any golf tournament, a big horse race, you can take a wager in a field without the favorite. So sometimes hear people say, oh, I took such and such golfer, but I took him, without, say, the top 5 guys or whatever the sports book offers you, Higgins. This is a market I like to play in sometimes for big golf events. I'm staying away for it in this episode, but I thought it was a useful term to discuss because it's a whole new market for people to explore.
Betting without, rather similar to betting the field in some of these golf events or horse racing, like you mentioned. We'll get into our golf picks, by the way. The U.S. Open starts on Thursday. We'll have some picks for you for that. Some outrights, maybe some round ones even. But before we get to that, Brett, the NBA playoffs have been in full swing. We waited till the end of the Sixers-Hawks game on Wednesday night to record this episode. And the Sixers just collapsed. Atlanta was able to come back with a strong performance from Trae Young. Philly, the fans booing their own team. But we're not going to see that on Thursday necessarily. We're going to see Brooklyn traveling to Milwaukee. And that's an interesting little fan base and dynamic, as well as we've seen some comments regarding Giannis hasn't been told to cover KD. Maybe that's foul trouble, what have you. But, Brett, we have an interesting line of Brooklyn +5.5. They are big underdogs in this game as they head to Milwaukee. And I don't know if I necessarily believe that after the performance we saw from Kevin Durant with a very injured James Harden, who is basically a decoy, and without Kyrie, who's sidelined with an ankle injury. Kevin Durant showed he is still the player he was before that Achilles injury, still showed he is one of the best scorers in NBA history, one of the best players in the NBA right now. So I'm going to back the Nets on the money line at +185 because I feel like this could be a line that we see move a little bit. We already know Harden's potentially going to be playing in this next game, but I could see this line moving a little bit more because we saw it move a lot with that Harden news last game.
Higgins, this was a line that I loved because I felt like this is going to be a one-possession basketball game. You mentioned how great the previous game was. I agree. Kevin Durant stood on his head, but that's what great players do in the postseason when they're needed and relied upon, right? Like, how many times have we seen Dame Lillard win a game, LeBron James win a game? Kevin Durant is as good, if not better, than those two. So, I don't expect him to come out and fall short of the challenge. I expect it to be a tight, close game, like we've seen in the last Nets Milwaukee game, like we saw in this Sixers Hawks game on Wednesday night, Higgins. So I'm selling some points here for the Brooklyn Nets.
Ooh.
I'm selling 2 points, getting the Nets plus 3.5 at plus 132 odds. So I didn't like the 110 Higgins at plus 5.5, although I do think the Nets will cover that if you want to bet it. Um, or rather, I don't think Milwaukee will cover the 5.5 on their end. But I decided this is going to be one possession. I'll sell 2 points back, still get the full three. So if the Nets lose by three, that's okay. And yeah, I get plus 132.
At the beginning of this series, I was saying that I thought Brooklyn would potentially sweep the Bucks. Maybe the Bucks grabbed one at home. They surprised me and grabbed both games at home in games 3 and 4. I don't think they're going to go 3-0 at home in this series though. The Nets, that's why I'm taking them on the money line. I think they're going to end it in game 6 here and move on to the Eastern Conference Finals.
I don't know, Higgins. I think you need to adjust your handicap when you lose two of your three stars.
You do a little bit, I agree, but that's why I think that plus 185 is some fantastic value because we saw Kevin Durant can put them on his back, and we're going to talk about that game a little bit more later, Brett. But let's talk about a different New York team. Jump into hockey, where on Thursday we have the Eastern Conference Finals between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the New York Islanders. And Brett, I'm not sure if you caught game 2, but there was some interesting chippiness going on throughout this game. Braden Point was basically thrown into Varlamov, yet still he got called for the penalty. Varlamov had to go back into the locker room and get tested through the concussion protocol and everything. He ended up coming back, but this game's been very chippy, and I think the Islanders at home, they're going to respond with that chippiness. I think we'll see Sorokin in the net this time, and he performed really well when he had to come in at a moment's notice when Varlamov came off the ice in game 2.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what goalie's gonna play. They've been riding Varlamov since the first series. The first series they were flipping back and forth. It's been Varlamov since, so I don't necessarily believe a goalie switch is coming, Higgins, but maybe that is the spark the Islanders need. I don't know. It's very tough to beat the Islanders at the Coliseum, so the last year of the Coliseum, there may be some magic in that building, but um, I think Tampa Bay, for my money, is the best team remaining, Higgins, even over Vegas. So I'm not going to be betting on the Islanders in this series, but someone is.
Yes, I didn't quite specify in my first statement there. I am taking the Islanders on the money line at plus 120. As the home team underdog, I just really like them in this scenario. I really like what I've seen from this series, and you gotta love a home dog in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, come on, right?
I'm not hating the bet at all, Higgins. I think it's really tough to go into the Coliseum and win a playoff game. Obviously, for the Islanders fans, it's their last year in the Coliseum. They move to a new stadium next year. Some fans are happy about it because they get the much needed upgrade. Some fans are upset because it's a much farther commute from the centrally located Nassau Coliseum. It's by nothing, but I guess it's in the middle of Nassau County, so that's nice. But
Being in the
yeah.
middle of nothing is still being in the middle of something, I guess.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of energy, a lot of juice in the building, Higgins. And yeah, it's been a rough go since the 80s for the Islanders, and these fans are excited to be cheering on a winner.
Now, this obviously is not the only hockey game we're going to have this weekend, but we do not have a line for the Western Conference game, mainly because, as we are recording here on Wednesday night, Brett, the Montreal Canadiens are playing the Vegas Golden Knights currently. The Canadiens have a 3-1 lead right now in Game 2 that Vegas currently has a 1-0 series lead in. So who knows? Maybe that conference finals is also going to head into Game 3 with a tied series. Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Higgins, I think that's going to be an underrated series. I don't think anyone was betting on the Montreal Canadiens before the playoffs started, but we all know a hot goalie is something that no one can beat, Higgins, and it's like the ultimate trump card, right? And when Carey Price is right, there are few, if any, better than him. I don't know.
You're not wrong there. You are not wrong there. Let's jump into our Moneyline Magic now, Brett. I said we were going to talk more about that Nets Bucks game, specifically Game 5 is what I'm referring to. And it's because Kevin Durant had a performance for the ages, but let's not sleep on the unsung hero of that game. Jeff Green is who kept that game within 20 in the first half because he was draining threes.
Yeah, 7 threes for Jeff Green. The Seattle Supersonics fans were rolling over in their graves, Higgins, as the last two Sonics were carrying the Nets in an Eastern Conference playoff game. They're like, oh my God, what could have been?
Both from Prince George County, too. I mean, they go way back, way back. But Kevin Durant is the guy that we have to talk about in this game because, I mean, 49 points, 17 rebounds, 10 assists. He had an NBA history making night in the playoffs, and that's saying something because he did something no one's ever done before of a 45-15-10 game.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're the first to do something, that's always impressive, Higgins. 45, 15, and 10 in a playoff game. That is a hell of a game. I think it's going to be tough to repeat. It's going to be a tall task for KD in game 6, but what a game in game 5. Milwaukee was outscored by Brooklyn by 22 points in the second half. They just absolutely folded in the second half. But Higgins, we saw a almost identical fold Wednesday night, right as we were getting ready to start this thing. The Sixers just absolutely collapsed and blew their halftime lead. So is this a trend we got to worry about in the NBA playoffs now? You do not want to be up big. You actually want to be down like 20 points at halftime.
Hey, complacency is the devil in the playoffs because teams will be motivated from whistle to whistle. Now, Brett, it was probably too late for you after that Game 5 between the Nets and the Bucks, but if you had hopped over to Twitter, you would have actually seen that Fire Bud was trending. Fire Michael Budenholzer, the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, they were criticizing him for how he plays Giannis, for how PJ Tucker was the one primarily guarding KD, how there was a lack of offensive motion and offensive readiness in the second half. They were just destroying this man, but it's something that they've done over the past few seasons because this isn't a first time scenario of this happening for the Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Higgins. I don't know how you watch what PJ Tucker is doing in this series and say, "Oh, he's the problem." Like, he is absolutely not the problem. Sometimes elite players do elite things. When you're the best player in the world, like seriously, when you're like the one of one, right? What do you expect anyone else to do? Like what do you want them to do? Oh, I want this guy to go out there and score 45 every night, but I want the guy holding him, playing defense on him to contain him to less than that. and then I'll be happy. Like, why? That's not possible. So there's got to be some give. There's got to be some take. If you're going to have a first ever player to drop 45, 15, and 10 in a playoff game, unfortunately, someone's got to be on the wrong side of that, even if they play really good defense.
Yeah, you just got to respect the game sometimes. Tip the cap when a player like KD does a first in NBA playoff history type of moment like that. We're about to jump into our U.S. Open picks here, Brett, but first, today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And be sure to add our podcast in the How Did You Hear About Podgo section of the application. Now, Brett, let's just jump right into our U.S. Open because we don't have a lot of time before they start teeing off on Thursday morning. So we have some interesting picks. I didn't look at the round one bets. I was more looking at overall over the course of the weekend. How about you?
Yeah, Higgins, I'm actually very excited for this tournament as an East Coast fan because the tee times are at 9 a.m. I get some evening golf, Higgins. I love West Coast majors, and we get Torrey Pines, and we get Torrey Pines maxed out, Higgins. They are playing from the tips of the tips of the tips, and that had me looking at the best strokes gained off the tee players, Higgins, and I found some great value in the top 20 field. So, like you, I was looking at long term weekend bets.
Yeah, even some of the people that have done like podcasts and some radio interviews that had the grounds crew, they were talking about how Torrey Pines, yes, just like most of these U.S. Opens in the past, it does favor the longer hitters. However, I didn't quite look at it that way. I mean, Bryson DeChambeau did win in 2020 when they played at Winged Foot last September, but you'll think of the U.S. Open, you have to think of who's able to get up and down because U.S. Opens, rarely do you have a large number of players that are playing under par golf. And so the first thing I really looked at was there's a prop in Oregon on how many players are going to be under par at the end of the tournament. And they set that line at 6.5 players. I'm taking that under. I mean, last year in 2020, DeChambeau was the only player under par. It is not uncommon that there is a winner over par in the U.S. Open. So they don't mess around. I've heard there are some parts of this course where the rough is longer than it was in 2008, the last time Torrey Pines hosted the U.S. Open. So I think this is going to be a brutal challenge for a lot of golfers. It'll be very fun for the amateur golfers who get to watch their favorite pros kind of come back down to earth a little bit and look like a regular golfer, have a hard time finding a ball, maybe hit a duff on a terrible lie, things like that. It's going to be hard to break under par, though, so under 6.5 players, that's the line that stood out to me the most for this weekend.
Yeah, I'm just curious, Higgins. What's the juice on that
Oh, it's
under?
minus 110 either side.
Minus 110 on under. Wow, that's unbelievable. That
It's
is
a
great
beautiful line
odds.
in Oregon. Beautiful line in Oregon. That's my
Yeah.
favorite line of this entire golf segment we have here, I think.
Yeah, okay, this is done. We're done offering advice. That's it. Yes. Well, I didn't have anything like that. No one was giving me some layups here, but I'm gonna be on the few top 20s that I mentioned, Higgins. I was looking at the strokes gained off the tee. Number one in strokes gained off the tee this year, no surprise, Bryson DeChambeau. Number two, Sergio. With all due respect to Sergio, who's a great golfer, he doesn't perform particularly well in majors over his career, so I didn't really feel the need to bet him. But number four is a guy whose name bettors are gonna love, Higgins. Johnny Vegas is our
Johnny
guy.
Vegas. Gotta
Johnny
love it.
Vegas. Yeah, absolutely. What a name. Have to bet on a guy named Johnny Vegas. Fourth in strokes gained off tees on the year. He is going at plus 410 in New Jersey to finish in the top 20. Higgins, I am hitting that with point 0.5 units. I simply do not know very much about this guy, but his name is Johnny Vegas, fourth in strokes gained off the tee, and he's plus 410. You have to be on Johnny Vegas.
Hey, I mean, you just convinced me a little bit. I'll have to look at what those odds are here in Oregon. Maybe I'll take that over here. I like that pick. I like that pick, but I see you also have a few other top 20s that you liked as well.
Yeah, so going off the same kind of strategy here, Victor Hovland to finish in the top 20 plus 105. He's fifth in strokes gained off the tee this year. Some guys I like, Patrick Cantley, 15th in strokes gained off tee for the year. He's minus 110 to finish in the top 20. Now, he's a guy that maybe this strategy doesn't fully back Higgins because I just think he's an unbelievable golfer that's yet to win a major, and I think it's coming at some point. So I expect him to be very competitive this weekend. And a guy I like who I've backed earlier this year, I told you about during the Masters. Will Zalatoris has come to play in his major career, Higgins. I think we might have another Brooks Koepka in the making where the guy just raises his level in the majors and he's plus money again to finish in the top 20. So I got to find myself on that, Higgins. Will Zalatoris paid out nicely at Augusta. I got to back my guys.
Absolutely. So that's four top 20 picks. And for those that are listening, you should pay attention. Maybe go back to listen to those picks again because so far in 2021, Brett is 2-0 with his golf picks so far. I am 1-4. I had some prop picks that were just a little too long of odds, didn't quite hit back with the Masters. But I have a few other picks, but besides that over-under that I told you about, I love that under 6.5 players to finish under par. Another one that I like is Xander Schauffele to finish in the top 10. This is a man that is from San Diego, where Torrey Pines is. It's a public course. Xander has played there countless times. He grew up playing on this course. That type of familiarity at a major has to be irreplaceable. I know that the course is going to look a little different. It did get renovated in the past few years. They grow out the rough, for example. They do a few different things, but overall, he understands this course and where he needs to hit it probably better than anybody else, even without looking at his notebook that he's filled out during his pre-rounds. And then I decided to look at the outright winners, Brett, and I took 5, and I'm putting half a unit on each of them. Now, the way I decided these picks, a lot of these picks so you went based off of driving. I went a little bit based off of driving as well. Driving accuracy percentage, so fairways hit and greens in regulation. That's what I'm looking at because the player that can do the best of staying out of the rough historically does the best in the U.S. Open. So I look at players like Siwoo Kim, who is my long shot here at plus 9,000, but he is 98th on the tour in driver accuracy percentage at 60.5%. And then his green and regulation, he's 63rd. Some other players that I like. Patrick Reed, who's a long ball hitter, that should favor him as well. John Rahm, who's the favorite of anybody on the course. He would have won a tournament recently if it wasn't for a COVID test. He's been playing fantastic. I like him at plus 1,600. Brooks Koepka at plus 2,700. You said it yourself, Brett. Brooks steps up to another level when it's the majors. And we have seen over the past few weeks this contention between Brooks and Bryson and the hatred between them and their fans and all of this. There was a rumor that the two of them were supposed to maybe be paired on Thursday. And when the committee asked Bryson if he was okay with that, he declined playing with Brooks. I personally really hope we see those two play at some point this weekend because that featured group would be phenomenal to watch. So that is John Rahm at plus 1,600. Brooks Koepka at plus 2,700. Siwoo Kim at plus 9,000. Patrick Reed at plus 3,300. And my last pick, the man that won the PGA championship, the man who the US Open has consistently evaded throughout his entire career. There is no reason logically why you should be betting on Phil Mickelson, who just set the record as the oldest man to ever win a major, who has never won a US Open. But you know what? If I don't bet on Phil Mickelson and he finally wins a US Open, I am going to hate myself. So this is a purely passion pick right here, but I am also putting half a unit on Phil Mickelson at plus 5,500.
All right, Higgins. Well, I hope one of your guys wins. I like the Shoffley pick. I definitely think he is a name to watch this weekend. You mentioned it, the hometown kid at home. Another top tier golfer, like similar to Cantlay, kind of just does everything well. And, that can keep you in contention at a place like this. You're playing for pars, Higgins. Par is a great score at the U.S. Open.
It really is. And like you said, Xander's always, he's around the group. That's why I took him as a top 10 finish at plus 130. I think those odds are pretty favorable as well, giving me that positive value back. Brett, let's jump out of the golf, though, and also talk about some Thursday baseball because we have a loaded episode here. We've already talked about the NBA, NHL, some U.S. Open, but we still have a loaded slate of baseball games to start off with. And I want to start with the Diamondbacks versus the Giants because if you've paid attention to what's happened to the Diamondbacks as of late, it has been rather rough. They have lost 12 straight heading into Wednesday night. The Diamondbacks and Giants are currently playing as you and I are recording, so I'm not sure if they've snapped that streak or if they have extended that to 13 games. My guess, though, is they extended that because the Diamondbacks have not won a game on the road since April. They have lost 21 straight road games. So why would I expect, with Kevin Gausman coming on the mound for the Giants, one of their best pitchers obviously having a fantastic season this year with an ERA under 1.5, the Giants aren't just going to win on Thursday. They're going to cover the run line, minus 1.5 at plus 100. If you see this value fall into the negatives, fall into the minus, I wouldn't take it. But if you have it positive, have it plus 100 or greater, take that absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's very fair, Higgins. I mean, the Diamondbacks are finding just the most brutal ways to lose. They were up 7-0 the other night against the Giants, and Yastrzemski hits a it's a late home run to beat Arizona and keep that losing streak going. Yeah, you do not want to be backing the Diamondbacks at this time. I'm sure the losing streak will end eventually. Could end by the time this podcast is over. They had a late start on Wednesday, but yeah, it's been a brutal stretch for the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Well, the Giants are up 4-2 in the third inning as of Wednesday night as we're recording this, so it's not looking good for them so far.
Well, if it's an NBA playoff game, it's looking great for them.
You're right. You're right, actually. Another game that I like, though, is heading up into the Rocky Mountains, Brett. I'm taking over 9.5 at minus 120 value in the Brewers versus the Rockies. And one, it's because rarely do you find a game in Colorado that you see that over under below 10. And I wouldn't be surprised if that is sitting at 10 by Thursday morning. So I'm taking that at 9.5 before it changes. But also, Brett, I was looking into this a little bit on Tuesday night with the news of the foreign substance ban that the MLB's putting out there that's going to go into effect recently, or in the next few days. Overs. Take overs. Look at them very hard in the next few weeks because if pitchers aren't able to get the movement that they necessarily were, if they're maybe leaving some hanging balls, that could mean some extra hits, extra runs, and overall, the MLB is hitting more overs than they are unders this season already. So I think this next few weeks, there is a window of taking some MLB overs and being very satisfied with the returns on them.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't really have too many thoughts on the ball and how it's going to change because I don't know. But I mean, to take an over in a game that Brandon Woodruff's starting, that is risky, sir. I mean, the reason that that over under is so low for a Coors game is because Woodruff has an ERA in the ones, Higgins, and then they have Devin Williams in the pen as well as Josh Hader. So the Brewers have some arms, but yeah, I guess you're right. There is some value at 9.5 at Coors Field, so I can't hate the play, but I got to explain it. It's Woodruff's the answer why it's low.
You're right, and you wouldn't let me get away without mentioning his name, and that's rightfully so. Brandon Woodruff has played fantastic so far this year. However, his past 2 games, he did allow 2 earned runs in each of those games. Neither of those games were over a mile high in elevation. So maybe we get a third or a fourth run. Maybe we see Milwaukee put a few runs across. I like this over 9.5 here. I really do.
Fair enough, Higgins. Fair enough. I'm going to find myself on a game between the Cardinals and the Braves. The Braves have been a disappointing team this year, but I think because they have so much star power with Acuna and Albies, and Freeman, we don't realize how disappointing they've been, Higgins. John Gant has actually probably been the better pitcher this season than Charlie Morton, which is crazy to think. But the Cardinals plus 155 on the money line tomorrow against Atlanta. That line just seems off to me, Higgins. So I'm going to take a unit. I'm going to back the Cardinals. I don't necessarily know if this is the greatest play in the world, right? I'm not studying up on, oh, when's the last time Arenado's had an off day, or Goldschmidt's had an off day, or De Jong's had an off day. But generally speaking, I think the Cardinals have performed up to expectation. I think the Braves have underachieved this year. It's been a rough stretch. They lost their catcher for the year. They've had pitching injuries. The Ozuna thing is a mess off the field, so he's not playing and out of the lineup. This is not the Braves we were betting on in the preseason, Higgins.
You are absolutely right. The Cardinals may have an edge here. I like the underdog value you get at plus 155. I feel like that is a little high as well. It'll be interesting to see, though, because they still do have those big bats in the lineup that are so scary.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Atlanta's got a lot of pop with Acuna and Albies and Freeman. Those three bats are as good as any team in the league, but that rest of the Braves lineup, not really what we thought it would be this year.
Absolutely not. There's a few other interesting games that will catch my eye later in the night, like a White Sox Astros game, maybe the Rays Mariners as well, being a nice West Coast game late at night. But Brett, let's jump into our Levy lock and our pick of the pods here. And you have a 4 game lead on me on the year in 2021. You have a positive record, so obviously, sir, you have the honors.
All right, Higgins. Well, I mean, I think this one's kind of fun. It's my biggest long shot of the weekend. But Johnny Vegas plus 410 to finish in the top 20. I'm locking that in, Higgins. I
Ooh.
think his strokes gained off the tee is going to be a huge factor this weekend. I think it's going to be a big factor for a lot of golfers, but no one else is going off in the top 5 at plus 410. My guy Johnny Vegas is there. I love the name. I love the odds, Higgins. So I'm rolling with Johnny Vegas in the top 20 as my Levy lock.
There we go, a half unit play as the Levy lock. I'm going to try to go a little bit safer. I'm still going positive odds. I'm going to go with the Giants minus 1.5 at plus 100. Like I said, the Arizona Diamondbacks on the road so far, they are hosting a 21 game losing streak that could be 22 by the end of Wednesday night because the Giants are hosting the Diamondbacks currently as we speak, Brett. But really, it is also about the fact that the Giants have their ace of the season, Kevin Gausman, on the mound, who has a great record of 7-1, an ERA under 1.5. I don't think he's going to allow Arizona to score many runs, and the Giants are going to be facing off against Zach Gallen, a formidable pitcher, but an ERA north of 3, a little bit more of an opportunity to score some runs. I like the -1.5 here for the Giants at +100 value.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair play, Higgins. We mentioned it. The Diamondbacks are not a team you want to be backing right now in any way.
Absolutely not. We'll also have some picks going through the weekend, so make sure to follow us on social media at NBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page and YouTube channel. This has been episode 148 of the Next Best Bet. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you again after the weekend.